So what is the difference between Freud and Winnicott? Well, for Freud, the journey began with sexuality, specifically psychosexuality. His theory was that adult neuroses were rooted in unresolved issues from psychosexual stages of development, particularly the Oedipus complex. For Winnicott, the journey started right at the very beginning, with birth. His psychoanalytic clinical findings illuminated the significance of the parental role in shaping a person's earliest relationships, and how these early object relations form the foundation for all subsequent relationships throughout a person's life. So let's explore the differences between Freud and Winnicott through 4 key points. Firstly, their theories originated from different motivations. Secondly, they have different views on the nature of the psyche. Thirdly, they differ in their ideas about the role of the father. And fourthly, they have contrasting views on the role of instinct. So by the end of this video, you should have a clearer understanding of where these two giants of psychoanalysis diverge. Firstly, their theories originated from different motivations. Freud began his work with a clinical focus, primarily on adult neuroses, whereas Winnicott's work was more heavily influenced by his observations of infants and children. This difference in starting points naturally led to different focuses in their theories. Freud's work centered around the idea that adult neuroses were rooted in childhood experiences, specifically unresolved issues from psychosexual stages of development, such as the infamous Oedipus complex. This theory stemmed from his work with patients who presented with neurotic symptoms and his attempts to understand the root causes of their problems. On the other hand, Winnicott's work started with a close observation of parent-infant relationships. He noticed that a child's early interactions with parents or primary caregivers had a significant impact on their later psychological development. In particular, he focused on how the mother's role was crucial in the infant's development of a healthy sense of self. As Winnicott observed, the mother's role was not just about providing nourishment, but also about facilitating the infant's emotional and psychological growth through a process he called holding. This idea of holding is central to understanding Winnicott's theory. It's about the mother, or primary caregiver, taking the baby's needs into account and responding appropriately. This helps the baby develop a sense of trust and security, which then allows them to explore the world around them more confidently. If this process of holding is not successful, the baby cannot develop a true sense of self and may struggle in later relationships. So while Freud began with the adult and worked backwards, Winnicott began with the infant and worked forwards. This difference in starting point inevitably led to different focuses in their theories. Secondly, they have different views on the nature of the psyche. Freud believed the psyche, or personality, was largely driven by unconscious forces, especially sexual drives. He proposed that our behaviors, thoughts, and feelings are influenced by this unconscious part of the mind, which operates outside of our awareness. According to Freud, the psyche is like an iceberg, with only a small part of it, the conscious mind, visible above the surface. The much larger part, the unconscious, lies hidden beneath the surface and contains repressed memories, desires, and instincts. These unconscious elements can influence our behavior and cause psychological distress if left unresolved. In contrast, Winnicott took a slightly different view. While he acknowledged the importance of the unconscious, he didn't see it as being solely driven by sexual instincts like Freud did. Instead, Winnicott's approach was more focused on the development of the personality over time. He was particularly interested in how early relationships, especially with the mother, shaped the way a person develops a sense of self. For Winnicott, the psyche is not so much an iceberg, but more like a canvas. As the child interacts with their environment and significant others, their experiences are painted onto this canvas, forming the final picture of their personality. So while both Freud and Winnicott recognized the significance of the unconscious, Winnicott placed more emphasis on the developmental aspect of the psyche, arguing that it evolves over time in response to experiences and relationships. Moving on to the third point, they differ in their ideas about the role of the father. Now, both Freud and Winnicott recognized the importance of the father in a child's development, but their perspectives differed. Freud, as you probably know, placed a strong emphasis on the Oedipus complex, which is a psychosexual stage where children, according to Freud, have unconscious sexual desires for their opposite-sex parent and rivalry towards their same-sex parent. In this context, the father plays a crucial role. The successful resolution of the Oedipus complex depends on the father's ability to establish dominance over the child, particularly the boy, and set healthy boundaries around the mother-child relationship. If the father is too weak or too permissive, the Oedipal complex may not be resolved properly, potentially leading to future psychological issues. However, Winnicott had a different perspective. While he acknowledged the importance of the father's role, he didn't give it the same weight as Freud did. In his view, the father's primary role was not so much about setting boundaries, but more about providing a link to the outside world. Winnicott argued that the mother's role was much more significant in the early stages of a child's development. Her capacity to provide what he called holding was crucial for the child's sense of self. The father, on the other hand, was seen as someone who could offer a different kind of love and a different perspective, which could be very valuable for the child's overall development, but it wasn't the central focus in his theory. So in essence, Freud saw the father as a disciplinarian who helps the child move through the Oedipus complex, whereas Winnicott saw the father as a guide who broadens the child's experience of the world. And finally, the fourth point, they have contrasting views on the role of instinct. Freud's theory was heavily based on the idea of instincts. He believed that our behaviors are largely driven by two fundamental instincts, the life instinct, or libido, and the death instinct. The life instinct, or libido, is the driving force behind our desire for pleasure, growth, and reproduction. It's the energy that propels us towards seeking out positive experiences and avoiding pain. On the other hand, the death instinct, or thanatos, represents our innate drive towards death and destruction. Freud believed that this instinct manifests itself in aggressive or self-destructive behaviors. Now, Winnicott didn't reject the idea of instincts entirely, but he didn't give them the same importance that Freud did. Instead, he focused more on the role of the environment and early experiences in shaping our personalities. For Winnicott, the idea of instincts was less compelling because it did not adequately explain the complexity of human relationships and development. In his view, human beings are not simply driven by basic biological urges. Instead, our behaviors and actions are shaped by our unique experiences, especially our interactions with caregivers and other people. This is why Winnicott placed such a strong emphasis on the role of the mother in a child's development. His concept of holding illustrates this point. The mother's response to the child's needs is not simply driven by biological instincts, but by a complex web of emotions, experiences, and learned behaviors. The same is true for the child. Their development is not just about satisfying basic biological needs, but about growing and changing in response to their experiences and interactions with others. So in summary, while both Freud and Winnicott made significant contributions to our understanding of the human psyche, they had different perspectives. Freud's work laid the groundwork for psychoanalysis, emphasizing the role of the unconscious and the impact of early childhood experiences, especially the Oedipus complex. Winnicott built on Freud's ideas, shifting the focus to the early parent-infant relationship and the mother's crucial role in a child's development. By highlighting the concept of holding, Winnicott emphasized the importance of the environment and early experiences in shaping our personalities and behaviors. Freud's work was largely instinct-driven, whereas Winnicott took a more nuanced view, giving less weight to instincts and more weight to the complexity of human relationships and development. I hope that helped. If you found this video interesting, I'd really appreciate it if you could give it a like and share it with anyone you think might find it useful. Thank you.